Hello, my name is Veronica and welcome to the Learning Lab episode number 103, and I'm here with the Inkadinkado stamping gear set. Come on in and let's get started. I've been busily playing around with this stamping gear. Now to get this beautiful circle, I use the circle gear and I use this cute little stamp. I turned it so that my leaf would face the outside when I stamped it down. So I stamped the first color using some of my Memento ink and the dark shade, and then I stamped it again before I re-inked it and continued around the circle. Now if you have the large circle nestabilities, I'm sure you could probably find one that would cut this out beautifully and have a nice embossing around the edge. For this one, I wanted a two-toned effect for that cute little flower, and so I used some of my Memento Dewdrop ink pads, inked these in a lilac color, and then I used a green here. And I did the same thing with the first stamp and then the second generation stamping, going all the way around, again using the circular gear. Now for this one, oh my goodness, I absolutely adore this one. And it is this particular stamp. So doggone cute. Now to get this, I used this one in the center, and then I went around stamping this motif, but when I went to the second one, I actually turned it so that it would go the other way. Let's move that. So the first time I stamped like this, then the next time I turned the entire thing and went in the other direction, and that's what I came up with. Love, love, loved it. Now this one is in the Cocoa Brown Memento ink. That's what I pretty much use for all of my samples. And this was the first one I did where I was really playing around, just trying to see what these would do. And I'm not sure, but something strange happened. I used this particular stamp. I did use the circular grid, I think, to stamp around this. But instead, when I went into each one, I immediately flipped it around and went into the next one. So here's what I did. I stamped here, then I flipped it and stamped here. Then I flipped it and stamped here, and then I flipped it and stamped here. So I went on the inside and on the outside of that one. If you're, really confused, I'll try to make a video showing that. But it was a practice because I know you can go straight around, but I wanted to see what can I get when I alter the design a little bit. So turning it this way, then flipping it around and stamping in a different direction actually came out really nice. This was the circle bubbles. Again, I did two colors on that using the Memento ink, and it's a really large circle because this die comes out further. So I just re-inked it every time and continued around the oval is what I used for that one. This, I was trying to play and line up something, but I didn't quite meet on these two. These two are fine. So I'm going to have to play with this one just a bit more to kind of see where I went wrong in my design. I am pretty much positive it's user error, but this is a stamp that I use for that. It's gorgeous, 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 gorgeous. So for this one, I've taken one of the little pine bough looking ones from this branches set. I'm going to use some black paper, but I want to stamp it using some white ink, and this is linen white. Now I've placed this pretty close to the top because I want my design to be rather tight. I'm going to do it around the oval because I only want to do half of the page. This paper is actually going to get cut down so that I can trim it out to use on a card. Now on here you have a spot that has your arrows, and if you start within one of those little pointed arrows, it's going to ensure that your design is going to line up for you. So for mine, I am putting it just slightly inside of my card. And for this design, I'm going inside of every notch. Now you could always sprinkle this with embossing powder and heat emboss it to really get a cool effect. Now a couple of times when I did this, I wasn't as steady with holding my hand on this, and so I got some movement, but you can always use some painter's tape or some repositionable tape to keep your design steady. There's the stamp design. I think it's very elegant, and I can trim it out or cut it out and make that into part of a card front or a scrapbook page. Okay, let's move on to our next sample. For this next demo, I am using some glossy cardstock paper. I'm going to use my circular stamping gear, and I'm using one of the motifs that came with the set, really cute, and I'm going to use some Versamark ink, and then later go back over that with some Memento Rich Cocoa using my brayer. Okay, I've gone all the way around that, and so what I'm going to do now is just go ahead and heat set that using my tool. I'm being a bit impatient here, so I hope this is ready to accept my ink. We're about to find out. So I'm just going to load my brayer up with my ink and make sure that it's covered all the way around. And what I want to do so I don't get that hard, sharp line is to just take a little bit off the leading edge that I'm going to use. And I learned that from Barbara Gray. She's a master of using the brayer. So I'm just going to run it here, and I want to take off just a little bit of my ink. I have more than I want to use. So doing that and taking a little off this edge softens it up, so I shouldn't get a hard line on my design. Let's turn it this way, and I'm just going to start off the card and roll back and forth. And I get a gradual buildup of color, and I don't get that hard line. And that's what I have so far. I'm just going to go back in and come back and do the other side. Okay, I now have the entire card done up with the Cocoa Memento ink, and I'm just going to come in and wipe it off. And now you have something resembling a really gorgeous card front without a whole lot of effort. Wow. So whether you want to do it on a cardstock, glossy cardstock where you're using some Versamark or embossing powder and going over that in your favorite colors, or if you want to use white on black, which I think is just as gorgeous. Have some glitter that I was playing around with in the way. But whatever you decide to choose, don't be limited by what you think is expected. Create some beautiful artwork of your own using this Inkadinkado stamping gear. I promise you, you won't be disappointed. As always, thank you for joining me in the lab today. Please remember to check out my blog at inkallusions.blogspot.com. Until then,